Je m'appelle Tammy Lee et je suis la co-fondatrice d'une compagnie qui s'appelle Culture Creates.
And what does Culture Create do?
Culture Creates accelerates the production of structured metadata for the cultural sector, performing arts and cultural sector.
And could you explain that exactly? What does that mean?
I think the problem is in the performing arts sector, it's sad to say, but the cultural sector is in many ways unaware and vulnerable. There's little to no machine-readable metadata available. So if you don't believe us, or believe me, you can ask Siri or Alexa or OK Google, and I'll know very little about, next to nothing about the performing arts. So we created Footlight to help technologies or bots like Siri, Alexa, and OK Google to know more about the performing arts. So the Footlight technology, essentially, we use sort of semantic computing techniques to translate websites into machine-readable code. So they can be findable on the web. I don't think governments, they can try the best they can, as they should, to regulate and have policies to control the large multinational digital companies like the GAFA or the FANG that I call them. But they can only go so far. So they'll need to really look at ways and putting incentives in society and how to develop different types of algorithms that are not linked to profitability. So give us an option, give me an option of what type of algorithm that I want to use. I don't want to use the algorithm that's, about the most popular. I'm not interested in the YouTube algorithm. Maybe there's another algorithm where I want to see more diverse stuff, but that algorithm doesn't exist today. So what incentives as a society, and our governments have to show leadership in this, what incentives can they give us so those alternative types of platforms, algorithms can be developed for the benefit of society, not the benefit of the pocketbook of a shareholder? So we're in a sort of, I did not think I was going to be talking about this today. We have to think is how is big business good for society in a digital world? We're not in the 20th century world where manufacturing was sort of the main way of, the industrialization of the economy was the main way how to generate wealth. We're building cars. People were working building cars. And when you really think about it as well, there's a statistic, and I don't know where it came from, but Ford Motor Companies, at the peak of depression or the worst sort of economic year it had, still employed more employees than Google does today. So the 20th century sort of capitalist model that we live in kind of works really differently in a digital world. We have these huge concentrations of mega companies, digital mega companies like Google, Facebook, Amazon. And because they're using digital processes, they use very little labor. We got to rethink the distribution of wealth in society. We got to rethink how we're going to do that. And I'm an entrepreneur, so I'm for commerce. I'm for how does business help the world. I think if we use it properly, it could be a way that we can motivate people and generate wealth for people, if we use it properly. So it's a huge problem that we're going to have to face, and metadata is sort of that tip of that iceberg. So if we can find a way to distribute metadata or leverage the use of metadata in a more fair way that is a little bit more equitable, I think that's a start. And that's an easier way to enter into, okay, well, let's rethink how we're working in society. So how we distribute metadata as a start I don't have an answer to any of this, but there's going to have to be real serious thinking how we redistribute wealth generation societally moving forward. That's linked to metadata in an abstract sort of sideways way, but I think there's a way of managing metadata that is a little bit more fair and more equitable for everyone. And if we could do it there, then we can apply it elsewhere. Let's start with the easy stuff, public metadata. Play around with that and explore ideas on how we can, sort of have collective governance over it.
Can you tell us, do you have concrete examples of how Footlight, have you been
Yep.
using it?
Yes, so we have a beta version of Footlight. So Footlight is a suite of technologies that sort of collect data, structure it, and can republish it back on the website. We source our data from arts organization websites. We think that's the easiest way to source our data. So we collect it, scrape it. If it's not structured, we'll structure it, and then we'll give an opportunity for the arts organization to republish that structured metadata back on their website so they maintain authority of their own metadata. We also provide an opportunity for the arts organization to sort of validate it and check it. So we have a sort of a portal and metadata editor. And then we link all the metadata together into what we call an artsdata.ca, a national knowledge graph of event metadata for the arts. And so that's what Footlight does. And it automates the process. We do 90% of the work. So we don't think it's the job of the ballet company to understand what semantic web is, ontology, taxonomy. It'll scare them if we had to, you know what, can you guys all get together and use the same semantic standards? They're just going to run away the other direction. So we created Footlight sort of as an automatic tool where we do 90% of the work, but to have the best metadata, that 10% of work that's left needs to be done by the arts organizations themselves. So we take their website, we translate it into machine-readable code, then we retranslate it back into a human form so they can take a look at it. And it's just a really easy portal. Hi, this is what we found on you. This is what it looks like. This is what you look like on the internet. This is what your machine-readable data that we have on you. And we just like you to take a look over it and just check. So we try to simplify that process without using any big words and just put all the complexity in the back end with our tool. And so to also accelerate the process of having critical mass of structured metadata for findability online in the cultural sector, focused on cultural events. I use the word findability. They're interchangeable. They're slightly different. But you can't even be, without machine-readable code, you're not even findable. The way the web is going to work is going to be different. My son is 12. When he's an adult, he's not going to be visiting a website and clicking on a link. So the way we use websites right now, when we have this idea of funneling people to come visit me on my website, this is being upended really quickly. So our children, in the future, they're not going to be visiting a website and clicking on a website to go visit. And where an arts organization or any organization can have control over the experience that you have when you visit their website. That's no longer the case. In this AI, in an AI-powered world, it's going to be about the AI platform that's going to grab your information and serve it up. So your information is going to have to be parsable from your website. So we foresee a future. The reason why we get information off of an organization website, we see the website as a master repository of data. Not necessarily in the future the location where you go to have an experience with that arts organization, but that master data repository of information is so that the AI platform, they're going to battle it out. Whoever ends up being that AI platform, or multiple, or one, I don't know what that's going to look like. They'll be able to grab the information that you have and serve it up to the public. But that's the way the future is going. So your website becomes a place where people come and take the information and use it. So, which is not a bad thing. That's just the way that's just the way it's going to go. That's where we see the future heading. So if you have an old style website that's not machine readable, I think your visits are going to diminish over the long term. Or what's going to happen is maybe the visits will stay the same, but the human visits will become less and less. And there'll be more virtual visits by bots. And if you're not machine readable, they're not going to understand your page, so they won't have any information to take with them to wherever they're going or why, to answer whatever reason why they're visiting your page.
Do you have can you measure what you've been doing? Do you have performance indicators?
We're just new. We're using Google. We're too new to do that. But what we'd like to do as we move forward is we're using Google Console, and we're just trying to find the KPIs to measure, like visits on websites or findability. But it's a tough one. But we see this as a future, as what's going to be happening in the future. I mean, if you just ask, one test we do is like ask Siri. Ask Siri about the Captain Marvel movie right now. It's going to geolocate where we are and give us a list of cinemas and times. Ask Siri about Gisèle Le Grand Ballet Canadien right now. I don't think will come back with nothing. But Gisèle's coming up. It's a huge ballet of Montreal's biggest ballet company. So it's because we don't have, that findability. I know that Google's working on a new event finder that's rolled out in the US but not yet in Canada. They're always, figuring out new user experiences for events or for this or for that. Google Answer Box. So they have UX engineers on staff, probably a whole team of them working every single day figuring out how to create new user experiences for people who are using the Google search. So if we make our event information in the arts and cultural findable or structured, that means we get to leverage the work that Google's doing, which is not a bad thing. We should build that knowledge graph and the leverageability for ourselves. If we just use Google tools, we're building Google's knowledge graph for them. Just before we do that, I just like to build a knowledge graph for the arts sector, then share with Google, then leverage Google's UX team of who knows how many UX engineers they have on their team, but that's all they do all the time. We can't have that in the arts sector, that many UX engineers, nor do we have that in a ballet company, no matter how big that ballet company may be. National Ballet of Canada has no developers and no UX designers on their team. Their focus is to produce ballet. So Footlight was there to solve that problem for everyone in the sector, because I'm a career arts manager. I come from the arts, who decided to quit her cushy job and start a tech company. On paper, does not say entrepreneur anywhere. On paper, does not say metadata specialist or subject matter expert in creating knowledge graphs. But over the years, I have now become a subject matter expert on metadata and knowledge graphs. Who knew? I wouldn't have known, but that's what happened. Event Finder.
Event Finder, they want to put you out of business. You will work with that, and they'll.
Yes, because you want to use the tools that's out there. So you want to be sort of a device agnostic or software agnostic. So yeah, you want to use Google's Event Finder tool, or Google's going to provide that to us as individual users. So I want the art sector to be able to leverage it. So the reason why I think that they're kind of unaware and vulnerable is like they're unaware that Google is creating this new Event Finder sort of user experience. If we remain unaware, we miss out on those opportunities to be more discoverable because we're not findable. Because right at the outset, we're not findable. So Google is creating discoverability tools all the time that we can't use if we're not findable. And when I say we, I mean the cultural sector. So Footlight, at a really basic level, when you think about the digital transformation of the cultural sector, that's a really big subject matter. That's kind of like, how do I do that? So for us at Culture Creates, we chunked it down to the smallest piece that we could think of, and the smallest, our starting point, because there are different small little pieces everywhere. Our starting point, the littlest piece that we can chunk, is like structured data. Oh, not just structured data, linked structured data. Oh, not just link structured data, what kind of data we're talking about, or we're going to do event metadata. I mean, so you chunk it down, the problem, to the little tiniest piece, and then you start building from there, building back up. So it starts with structured data. And if we don't have it, there will be no digital transformation in the arts sector. So, we can talk about digital transformation in the arts sector till we're blue in the face, but if we have no structured metadata that is linked, we're not getting very far. We're not going to be part of the 21st century.